I have some concerns regarding Pokemon Legends Arceus. Hey, how's it going, guys, and welcome back. So some of you may have seen my video outlining the reveals of both Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, as well as Pokemon Legends Arceus, and in it I discussed how I believe that Legends Arceus is a step in the right direction in terms of taking real risks and changing up the formula in ways that I honestly never thought Game Freak would. Now, that's not to say that I don't enjoy the typical 8-badge adventure. I mean, ROM hacks and games like Pokemon Xenoverse prove that this is a format that works, but recent times have shown that having the same story with the same goals and the same sort of evil team can get old, especially when the studio creating all these different stories is the exact same. I definitely noticed this in the latest generation when a lot of these Sword and Shield characters felt very same-ish to their Sun and Moon counterparts. I mean, this just makes sense. How many times can you have the same team of developers recreate the same general idea before overlaps start to happen? Anyways, many have had some concerns with the upcoming title, and while I am cautiously optimistic about the project, there are some concerns I have with how it may be executed, and I wanted to discuss it here because sometimes good ideas can be poorly executed, and I do have some valid worries given the execution of certain similar mechanics within the recent games. That said, make sure to sit back, relax, and let's talk about this. So before we begin, yes, Pokemon Legends Arceus, we don't have a lot of information on the game, and this video is going to discuss my various concerns, which very well could not end up being an issue. This is based off of what we've seen with the trailer and what we've seen given Game Freak's history. The first point a lot of people have been talking about, and I just want to get this out of the way as well, is the graphical fidelity of the game, and a lot of people are saying it's not on par with other Switch titles, and I don't want to invalidate anyone's concerns with that aspect of the game. However, me personally, I don't care too much about graphics. If a game has good graphics, it's a plus for me, but not a huge pulling point. That said, the game is only a year from release, so I wouldn't expect the graphics to get much better between now and then. Other YouTubers have done this topic to death, but in short, when we see games a year away from launch, they generally look pretty similar to the final product. So if you are someone who cares a lot about the game's graphics, this will very likely be a point of contention for you, and that's a perfectly valid criticism. I just personally don't really care about it that much. What I do care about, however, is content, and this is where my concerns come in with the game. The idea of having a game that takes place in the past, telling a deep story with an open world, sounds really cool on paper. The Pokemon world is extremely built and lived in, and honestly quite fascinating. My concern, however, stems from the recent watering down of content within Pokemon games due to time constraints or mobile games, and the sort of apathy towards creating content-rich games outside of the typical shiny hunting, catching, battling, and breeding that we're seeing in recent times, and this has me wondering how exactly the open world is going to work and what sort of content we'll have to fill in dead space. A lot of people have been saying that they want Pokemon to get the Breath of the Wild treatment, and this may be a hot take, but I personally felt that while Breath of the Wild had a beautiful and large open world, it didn't reach its full potential by primarily consisting of shrines, many of which felt the same, and Korok seeds, which were basically just mindless fetching. That's not to say that the game is bad by any means. It definitely had its merits, and there's a reason why so many people are excited for the sequel, but I'm saying this just to say that I'd prefer that Pokemon doesn't try to recreate that experience with a 1-to-1 ratio, because Pokemon doesn't need a huge world, but instead a decently sized one with a lot of content to explore. This sort of leads into past behaviors, specifically regarding the wild area, which on paper is a very interesting and I'll say great idea, but was executed poorly in my opinion, as it feels like an empty wasteland with a few raid spots here and there and some items with some wild spawns sprinkled around it. If the Legends Arceus game functions in the same exact way, then I don't think it's going to be well received. Another point is that a lot of the Pokemon we see in the trailers behave no differently than they did in Sword and Shield, which is another indication that we may not end up seeing the world used to its full potential. If every Pokemon walks around aimlessly, it really limits what they can do with them. A few cool environmental interactions could be running into a few Bidoof building a dam, or a Pineco hanging from a tree in which you have to use the roll mechanic to make it fall, or even something really silly like a Toxtricity and a Rillaboom having a jam session. There could also be Pokemon fighting each other in the wild like we see in Snap, and overall just things that make the world more lively and give you a reason to explore. Perhaps we could see dens like in Monster Hunter Stories, which are generated throughout the map, or they could be like special tunnels that were dug up by Drillbur or Diglett and have random loot, and then you could also have sort of random events where you have to save people from wild Pokemon, sort of like the hostage events in Far Cry. What I'm trying to get at in this regard is that the game needs to have a reason to be open world. Catching Pokemon is great, but there needs to be more of a reason to to actually explore different areas, then oh well, that specific Pokemon lives here. Next we have the issue of optimization, which has been a long-running issue for Game Freak. I mean, Gold and Silver is a great example when they needed intervention from the legendary Iwata in order to fit Kanto in the game. Now there have been issues like Gen 4's battle system running very slowly, but the real problems in my opinion started in Gen 6 with the game really having issues running smoothly given the leap to 3D. For the most part, this was written off due to the limitations of the 3DS. However, the Switch is a much more capable console, but we still see optimization issues on that as well. Someone on our Discord brought up the point that given time constraints, they likely haven't been given the chance to really rebuild their engine, and as of such, a lot of clutter and maybe outdated, messy code is present, which is most likely true, but we're still paying full price for the game. So while I can sympathize with the developers, I have less sympathy for the bigwigs at the top that are calling the shots in that respect. Anyways, the optimization issue expands a lot further than just the frame drops like we see in the Legend Arceus trailer, which honestly I could get over. My problem is that it will likely limit what they can actually put into the world itself, leading me to believe that we could end up getting a rather barren world with little to do, as not to put extra stress on the game's engine. This also leads into another issue with optimization, and that being the pop-in issue, which for me is a big deal, as in Sword and Shield, simply riding the bike is too fast for the game to keep up. And given that Legends is an open world, it's going to need some type of mount that you can travel with quite fast. It'll be a real issue if you can't even see spawns without passing them because of the poor optimization of the game, especially if that's the entire game being like that. I guess my main concerns can be summed up into one short statement, being that I don't want the game to simply be a giant version of the Sword and Shield Wild area. A game void of any meaningful content and just a catch-em-all simulator where the player just catches Pokemon to fill out the decks and nothing more. Now with all that said, I don't mean to sound like a fun sucker, because honestly and truthfully, I am actually excited to get my hands on this game, if for nothing else than the fact that Game Freak is willing to try something different. And if the game doesn't end up being that great, I do hope they try to continue to step out of their comfort zone and put an honest effort into making a full Pokemon experience with a wealth of content. The old mobile statement made by Masuda is honestly laughable given by how much demand there is for the monster taming genre, and I hope that the game isn't put together with that philosophy in mind. I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic until we get more details, but yeah, that pretty much sums up my major concerns, basically boiling down to lack of content. Let me know what you're both looking forward to or are concerned with regards to this title, and if you did enjoy this discussion video, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel where we cover the entire monster taming genre, which encompasses games like Pokemon, but also others such as Temtem, Kindred Fates, Coromon, Nexomon, etc. You can also join our monster taming Discord as well, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.